The paradox of healing. I don't remember the exact date or the exact time when I heard these words. Absolutely everything you do counts, and absolutely nothing you do matters. But I do know that it was before Hurricane Katrina. The year 2005 saw the aftermath of the December 26th, 2004 earthquake that hit Southeast Asia. It had a magnitude of 9.1 to 9.3. It shook the ocean floor just off the coast of Sumatra. The tsunami waves were between 30 to 50 meters high, and it killed under 300,000 people. From that event, the world saw hurricanes in Central and North America, notably Katrina, which triggered the horrible flooding in New Orleans. Then there was the October earthquake in Pakistan and India, which devastated the mountain people who already had nothing. Winter was coming. There were very little in the way of aid that was reaching them before the story fell out of the news. So the year saw also famine after crops were destroyed by locusts in Niger. Locusts. So from January to October in 2005, 97,490 people were killed in disasters globally. 88,117 of them in natural disasters. That's a whole lot less than the 300,000 people that died on December 26, 2004. There was such an outpouring of emotion at that time, and a group of very, very dedicated souls, my friend Doug included, came to the small Buddhist temple in Riverdale, Edmonton on New Year's Eve 2004. It was literally minus 30. We gathered and we psychopumped for the people of the area, and all of us came back just truly, truly changed. And that shortly after that, absolutely everything you do counts, and absolutely nothing you do matters. Throughout my years of practicing, I have had the opportunity to study different healing practices. I have been blessed to learn from other shamans and healers of different modalities. And I've really had the pleasure and the fascination, the ever ongoing curiosity piqued as I have been given ample opportunity to work one-on-one with persons who are seeking help for whatever reasons, and this has been part of my life for a good number of years. Very early on, Spirit told me in that paradox of healing manner, you are exactly whole and healed in our eyes. You exactly whole and healed in our eyes. You believe you are wounded, so we provide ways for you to feel healed. But to us, you are perfect. I was a little stunned by that. I understood. I was completely at peace with that statement at the moment, and completely at odds with that statement in the moment. Again, there is that paradox. However, my human defender self, my healer self, sometimes I see illness, and illness is presented to me as a burden, as a horrific burden to many. But it is all as it should be. But then, I have to argue, but if we had, a fair and reasonable economic structure, we could, but everything is perfect. It is a damn paradox. It is. Again, I admit I was and still am completely at peace with that statement and completely at odds. It has come to me through my own stubborn tracks through the spirit world, of which you and I have explored together. We have explored some of my trials and tribulations and some of my stupid knocks on the head and some of the interpretations that Spirit has given to us. What that stubbornness has led me to is the realization that everything is in the right time, in the right place, and everything is perfect, even if it just sucks. This led me to the practice or listening to the differences between healing and curing. Shamans believe that the world seems real only because we perceive it as such, and that everything we perceive is a reflection of an internal or individual map, a blueprint that each of us has constructed about the nature of reality. We are the perceived and we are the perceiver. We are the macro, we are the micro. We can speak those words very easily, but it is not always an easy task to experience the relationship. Sometimes it can be elusive, and at times it can be a overwhelmingly intoxicating, beautiful experience. But what is this curing, you ask? Healing, curing, those terms I have heard over the years is used interchangeably. But I wanted to set out and figure out what the differences were. The definitions of them, I think, are really incredibly different. Curing is a restoration of health. It becomes an absence of symptoms and a remedy of disease. Healing, on the other hand, is a restoration of wholeness, an integrated process. It transcends the physical and includes mental, emotional, and spiritual vitality and wellness. In this restoration and in this integrative process, the spirit is challenged. Curing is challenged. Curing is the business of medicine, and healing is the business of the shaman. Curing consists of treating disease and eliminating symptoms. We all know people who have received cures but have not experienced healing. And when this happens, even in my own life, I think, well, I've certainly eliminated this, I've cured this in myself, only to have the symptoms return. And because I haven't gone deeply enough into that healing process. So the healing addresses the cause of disease. And oftentimes that is a trauma, whatever that trauma may be. Whether it is trauma through abuse, trauma in surgery, trauma of somebody stepping out behind the door and scaring the ever-loving shit out of you and you hate to be scared. You know, that can be trauma. I may have caused one or two traumas in my life, and I certainly have apologized for them. However, as you can tell in my voice right now, I'm finding it still a little bit funny. So anyway, apparently I have ego work. So anyway, back on track. The resulting, what aspects of that, the cause of the disease. So we have these toxic emotions. So what happens then, oftentimes it separates us, these toxicity, from our joy. I find that joy is being taken from us. I also have found in the last few years of doing the healing work, there are various times where certain themes or certain things will come through my healing room over time. And joy has been one that has recurred over and over again through the years. Obviously, it is also addresses the cause of the loss of health. To those of us who practice shamanism and other modalities as well, the cause of the disease is due to the imprints of the stored trauma. In my practice, my own practice of healing, trauma is stored in the physical body. And oftentimes that manifests as headaches, it manifests in sore shoulders, wherever we cause or hold that tension. I mean, that is a very obvious aspect to how trauma is stored in the body. But trauma is also stored in the body, perhaps by a numbness that is unexplained. It can be stored in the body by restless sleep. It can be stored in the body through an aversion to a certain color of food. Who knows? We can go on and on and on, and we could all come up with many ways that trauma can manifest within the body. Or an extraction is one of my tools. And what I work on very specifically is I extract the roots of things, the undigested ideas, the hard shells that are over the heart. I like to take my hands, one underneath the back and one on the chest, and squeeze really hard, and my spiritual ears hears the crack of the exoskeleton. Sometimes we have the barriers or the armor up from an etherical perspective. Oftentimes there are words stuck in the throat. There are many ways to extract the roots. There are many ways of extracting what is symptomatic in the body. My hands I use as tools to remove the memories from cells and from the muscles, from the physical, from the energetic, the mental, by physically manipulating the body itself. The paradox of healing in some regards is that as much it is a spiritual reality, it also is a physical reality. I like to involve the physical body in the abstract healing process because I really believe that the mind, the body, the spirit all have to buy into the process. And the mind is the event processor in order to bring it to consciousness, to light. So the aspects of the body. While curing eliminates symptoms, often, though, not always, it does produce a physical cure. While healing, we often measure the success of healing by an increased well-being, a sense of new profound peace, empowerment. It's very important for me to have empowerment. And a feeling of communion with all life. That is an aspect of bringing us back into that whole. It's a transformative experience. We want to see it in some aspect, in some way, reflected in other areas of life. Healing should be like watering a plant. We have the seed, and healing is the seed, and as we continue to tend that seed, it grows into whatever your imagination wishes it to grow into, a tree, a flower, or whatever it's going to grow into. You see where I'm coming from. What is this aspect of it? I like to see the curing journey. I had a breast reduction surgery to cure shoulder and back pain. In my healing journey, I used it as a way of healing from sexual assault. One of the ways that I prepared for the surgery was to create a musical soundtrack that would activate the healing meridians, or activate the meridians in my body to heal through the surgery and to accept the change within the physical body and to reattach themselves. And the other important aspect of the healing was I was able to find out what operating room or, what are they called? They're not called operating rooms. What are they called? Anyway, I can't think of it right at the moment, but you get the theater, operating theater. So I journeyed the night before I was going in for surgery, and we set the corners of the room and called in the directions. And I knew that the room was not the room that the nurse had told me. So when I got to the hospital the next morning, I asked what theater we were going to be in, and she said, oh, we had to change to such and such a theater. I was wheeled into the hospital room or into the operating theater, and I asked which direction was which, and a lovely female anesthesiologist told me which direction was which, and I could feel the spirits there. And it was interesting because we had walked across the hall in my journey and set up the space in the particular theater that we ended up being in. Of doing that was that I trusted the doctors who had trained to remove and cure me physically, and my spirits worked on me that night or during the surgery in order to remove the wounds that came from sexual assault. So we're removing, and they're curing my body, and my spirits were extracting the aspects of my soul, spiritual, mental, and physical wounding. I mean, there's more to the story, suffice to say. It was profoundly healing, but it came also with a sacrifice. So that in and of itself was a paradox. So I felt and still feel healed by that process, immensely healed by that process. And that happened in 2008. But it did come with a sacrifice that I am 2008. But it did come with a sacrifice that I am reminded with every day. However, that's not the point of the story. Illnesses of the body and the mind or the soul, but they're never one without the other. There is a notion long recognized by healers and philosophers, even Socrates. Socrates wrote, "The cure of the part should not be attempted without treatment of the whole. No attempt should be made to cure the body without the soul. Let no one persuade you to cure the mind until he has first given you his spirit. For the great error of our day is that physicians separate the heart from the mind and the mind from the body." Socrates had a way with words. And even if we are losing ground physically, there's an extraordinary emotional healing that can go on. One of the more practical, pragmatic, and aspects of shamanism, however you want to perceive this is going to be, is that whether you live or you die is relevant, but it's irrelevant, because to the shaman is what's really important to me as the shaman is that when you die a good death, you die a whole death, so that when you return, if you are indeed going to return, you return more whole than what you lived in this life. It's important that we make the soul more embodied within self as it moves forward in its evolution and in its process. When we go through the emotional, the mental, and the spiritual healing, it is healthier, and the spiritual healing, it is healthier and healing to allow yourself to feel whatever is coming up in you. So during the process of my own recovery of surgery, I was able to access a much deeper level of emotion and healing than I had done before. Again, it allowing that deeper healing. So if that feeling for you or those emotions for you are anxiety, depression, and grief, allow that to whatever extent you can to move into the body, embrace it and allow it, and then see if you can move out of it quickly, as opposed to many of us push it away. One of the questions that I get asked, and I think one of the expectations people have is, but if I'm healed, like an instant event? Well, yes and no. We can all call to mind the concept of the onion. Each layer, each peel, closer and closer to the center we go. The roots of things. In my soul retrieval story that I have already shared, but I'll share quickly an aspect of it, was, for me, there was an instant change in my personality. But with peace comes chaos. So I encountered an astounding change and healing, and what that did was it brought chaos, and the way that I was able to create out of the chaos was to understand in my mind, what my spirit and my soul had experienced. I, in the most voracious, starving way, pursued knowledge and experience. I loved the academic pursuit of observation, the anthropology of consciousness. I like other people's encounters with traditional cultures, and they try as best they can to stay outside and be observers. And what I appreciate about that is that the tool of journey work, the tool of exploration, allows me to see and to feel and to experience, as much as I'm capable of course, the ceremonies or the way of life of the traditional people or being shared with me. For me, I had to see it, albeit, like I said, through somewhat biased eyes, but it allows me to begin. So that began my quest to learn and to understand this mysterious concept of healing and curing. The paradox of healing for me is that it is ever constant wheel of change. I'm deepening my inner peace while working with change. And healing does not necessarily right away mean peace. You gotta work it. You gotta work it. Shamans, our ancestors, our grandmothers, our grandfathers, they would be known to be able to cure illness or a malady if they themselves had overcome it. And if they had overcome death, themselves had overcome it. And if they had overcome death, then they had overcome even a greater form of initiation. You know, some of us are able to cure maladies and illnesses because we've overcome them. But for me, it's a tracker. As a tracker, I'm always trying to understand the pathways of the spirits. So if, as tracking, you use the ability to track the spirits of the illness and the maladies, I often wonder if we live in a much more diverse society. I mean, we have a much larger population. Statistically, with the contemporary shaman, the urban shaman, the rural shaman, the present-day shaman, encounter a different array of manifestations of illness, be it in all four spheres, than our grandmother's grandmother or our grandfather's grandfather. Do we? I don't know. I think that. So another aspect of the paradox is after receiving healing, we are then initiated. Shamans were and are initiated into the medicine of healing the spirit of bone. There are some shamans in the central states who are known as the bone setters, and the people around, if there was a shaman who was a bone setter or knew the spirit of the bone or had a relationship with the spirit of the bone, people would travel for the medicine of this healer on their bones. Some were known as had the spirit of blood, so knew the spirit of blood. So what plants, what malady, or plants, or what remedies to stem bleeding or to cure bleeding in the inside, bleeding in the urine. There were various helping spirits. that shamans now, and of our grandmother's grandmother and our grandmother and so on and so forth, we learn to use the helping spirits, and we learn to be used by the helping spirits so that we can intervene to heal the issues that people are coming to us. And beyond that as well, other nature beings and what the planet is experiencing. I believe that we have many people amongst us who are more initiated into the medicine of healing the earth, the medicine of healing the trees, the medicine of the rivers, or the songs of the rivers, the songs of the trees, the songs of the earth. They have contacted and been contacted by the helping spirits of the Gaia. There are those that have been contacted by the healing spirits of the star nations. And I could go on and on. There are as many spirits as we can name, as we can compartmentalize, there are as many spirits as we can name, as we can compartmentalize, or we can come back to that universal you, or that universal universe. Again, the paradox of healing is the ever-constant wheel of change. And I know that in my own life, I am becoming more comfortable with chaos. I have lived a good deal of change, of perception, of reality and truth this year, and have been fundamentally shifted in my formation, in my grounding. And yet, I feel deeper and wiser and more present than I had before. The paradox is, I started this journey more than 30 years ago. And I'm still on that wheel. I am still peeling my onion. I am still moving to the center. Are we healed in one fix, one fell swoop? Yes. Can we re-exhibit the symptoms of the healing? Absolutely. Why? Because one of the reasons is we do not always follow the advice of our soul to continue to move forward in understanding ourselves, working with ourselves, working with ourselves, addressing the nature of ourselves. How? Whatever ritual or ceremony connects you. Are you looking for connection to the air, to the earth, water, fire, the physical, the mental, the spiritual, the emotional? What are we looking to have relationship with? We have a soul retrieval. Are we asked, or have we had emotional pieces of ourself returned and yet do not engage in those emotions because we fear those emotions still? We have to work it. We have to work it. To work it, we get to know, are we? The who am I question. Although many of us know who we are, the deeper question remains, who is that, or what is the awareness behind my thoughts? Who is that awareness behind my thoughts? Healing takes us deeper. That are some of my thoughts on the paradox of healing. I do hope that you have enjoyed my mental meanderings, and I wish you a most blessed day, evening, week, year. Happy 2017. I hope you continue to tune in. Send me your ideas, your messages. We are going to have a curse number 2 podcast coming before spring equinox. And I believe the next podcast is going to be on the number 13. But that could change. You never know. Until next time, I bid you a fond adieu.